all over the country come here to cheer for Monica.
But now it's Monica's son who is making headlines.
Child pornography, bottom line, is heinous.
It's 10 counts of child pornography charges that 27-year-old William Austin Aldama now faces. Officials say he had graphic content of children under the age of 10. It's a far cry from Aldama's initial brush with fame that came from the Netflix show Cheer, starring his mother, Monica Aldama. The show centers around the Navarro College cheer squad in Texas, with Monica Aldama as head coach. Former CIA officer and FBI agent Tracy Walder says Austin Aldama's crime likely has nothing to do with cheer, but that doesn't mean investigators won't contact cast members of the show.
I'm sure they've spoken with Monica. I'm sure they've spoken with any close contacts he has with members on the team, but it may be completely separate. He may have nothing to do with the team. I truly don't know.
Cheer takes place in Navarro County, Texas, the same place where Austin Aldama was arrested on January 18th. He was later released from jail on a personal recognizance bond, meaning he didn't have to pay the $20,000 of bond per charge, which would have totaled to $200,000. And he was arrested, booked, charged, all of that, but has since been released. Do you think that that was the right move or the wrong move to have him out in the public?
Sierra, it is so frustrating. And I hate to bring, again, my own daughter's case, but it's really similar to this. So if that helps viewers and myself as an FBI agent sort of help give them an understanding. Most of these individuals, including in my daughter's case, are free on bail and bond.
While Walder worked on child pornography cases during her time at the CIA and FBI, it was a situation much closer to home that created her passion for the subject. In 2020, her daughter's former teacher, Jason Baldwin, was arrested for purchasing child pornography while using the school's server. It happened in Dallas, Texas, only about an hour north of Navarro County.
The example of how my daughter's offender was taken down is very similar actually to this. And they were both charged with the same thing, which is child pornography under the age of 10.
According to court docs, Austin's charges stem from an incident in July 2022. Walder believes Austin's arrest, as well as the arrest of her daughter's teacher, both stemmed from similar investigations.
And so basically what happens is they are mostly focused on sort of the kingpin, the king supplier, the king makers of this pornography. And then from there, once they track that individual and are usually able to capture that individual, they actually keep that capture secret and work with the individual to, I guess, identify, if you will, the top consumers of this horrific product that they're selling. And it's my assumption that that is probably what happened in this case, although we don't know for certain because, I haven't read the entire probable cause affidavit. But if you read the case, the PC in my daughter's case, this is exactly how Jason was also arrested. It was the same way. They identified the kind of kingpin who was based out of Pittsburgh, and then kind of went out from there.
Does that make things more tricky? Because, this case based in Texas like you, but then the kingpin you said is based in Pittsburgh. This could be an international thing. Does that make it all the more difficult?
It does. And typically that's why these types of things typically are investigated by the FBI. Now, in this case, I don't know where it originated from or if he was just kind of a sole person getting this. So the FBI may or may not have been involved in that case. But the reality is these are multi-state, multi-country investigations, and it does become very difficult, especially when you're working with the sort of international police agency or Interpol to identify these individuals.
Walder says the internet or dark web makes accessing child pornography easy for offenders. At the same time, it's the sheer amount that makes it harder for investigators to track everyone down.
I think what makes it harder, quite frankly, is that there's a lot of it. And it's very difficult because of the prolific nature of the internet to sift through all of that. So what then law enforcement essentially has to do, whether it's at the city level, some cities do have very prolific, child porn detectives who are working through those cases, or at the state and federal level, they have to almost prioritize those that are the largest. And that is tough. It's a tough pill to sort of swallow because there are so many.
Walter says most of the illegal content is found on the dark web or through apps that she believes should be blocked by internet providers.
It's mostly dark web stuff, if you will. In the case of my daughter, it was through an app called Kik, or Kik. And that was an app, is an app that is very, very well known for containing child pornography. It has other things as well. Really, the reality is, Apple should be blocking the download of these apps. Quite frankly, schools should be blocking access to these apps and the ability to pay through these apps, but they're not. And I think that's another problem as well. Clearly, we need to hold the people that are purchasing this, accountable, but we also need to hold web hosts accountable as well.
And it's not just users that investigators are tracking down. And I know that they're going to search for all the people who have either purchased this material or have it on their cloud, things like that. But at the same time, are investigators looking for these children who are in the photos, maybe to make sure that they're okay?
Yes, so I think that that's probably a two-pronged approach, right? You've got the human trafficking or the child trafficking side of it, the individuals who are in these videos. That is clearly being investigated, as it should be, to make sure that the welfare of these children is priority number one. But then on the other side, yes, they are identifying the folks who are using these apps to download it, who are using emails to produce it, who are using emails, to distribute it. And so I think, yes, it's sort of a two-pronged approach, if you will.
Walter says it's unlikely that Austin Aldama faces any additional charges, but others related to him may.
They meticulously build these cases over months, sometimes over years. I don't expect more charges to be brought on him, although clearly I could be wrong. What they might be doing is trying to find out if he distributed it further to other individuals through him as sort of the center point of that. So I don't expect him to have more charges, but I do think they might be looking at anything he's distributed.
But for the charges Austin already faces, child pornography of children 10 years old or younger, if he's convicted, there could be a steep sentence.
What that tends to be is a tougher sentence, if you will, a tougher outcome for the individual. Child pornography, bottom line, is heinous. It should never be tolerated, and it should come with a very harsh punishment, always. But typically, if it's for people, kiddos under the age of 10 or under the age of 5, that is taken very differently by the legal system. And a lot of times that comes into play during a plea deal and plea bargaining, because the vast majority of these child porn cases, the vast majority of them plead out and never make it, through the court systems.
That's what happened in the case of Jerry Harris, once a breakout star from Cheer. In 2020, he was arrested on multiple charges, including soliciting sex from minors and production of child pornography.
I can't even process it right now.
Monica Aldama also addressed the arrest on her Instagram, writing in part, quote, "Our children must be protected from abuse and exploitation." Walter says it's unclear whether there's a connection between Monica's son and Jerry Harris.
It's hard to know. I don't know if Austin and Jerry knew each other, right? I don't know. I think if there was, and Austin was getting child pornography from Jerry or vice versa, I think we would have seen an arrest earlier in something like this. I'm not sure that there is a connection. I think it's just that disgustingly prevalent right now.
In 2022, 2 years after his initial arrest, Harris was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison.
I don't like to use the word normal in relation to something like this, but it's pretty typical. So my daughter's teacher was arrested in 2020 as well, and he reported for his sentence in very late 2022, but he took a plea deal for 20 years. So that's pretty normal, even if they do take a plea deal, because the cases need to move through the systems. Right now, which is awful, they do not view Austin as a violent criminal. And so because he is out and not currently in jail, a lot of times those cases or the law are not heard as quickly. Look, he may tomorrow, go to the court and say, I would like to plead guilty. He might do that through his lawyers. I don't think so. But it's going to take a while before he's ultimately convicted and goes to prison.
2 other cheer stars, Robert Skiana and Mitchell Ryan, were also arrested in separate sex crimes that involved children. Because of all this, it's possible others involved in cheer are investigated, but Walder says it's not very likely.
It would depend as to whether or not Austin had, close personal relationships with the current cast, right, of cheer, and close personal relationships with his mother, and if his mother knew about it, right, then obviously that could clearly be investigated, would be grounds for investigation, which I'm sure that they are doing. I'm sure they've spoken with Monica. I'm sure they've spoken with any close contacts he has with members on the team, but it may be completely separate. He may have nothing to do with the team. I truly don't know. But I do think one thing that shows need to think about is properly vetting the people that are on them and making sure that this type of behavior isn't being put out there, quite frankly, because I think if we did more deep vetting, maybe we wouldn't run into issues like this.
In the end, Walder says she hopes sharing her personal story will bring awareness to the seriousness of the issue.
It is painful to talk about. Obviously, it's something my whole family, has to deal with, my daughter and myself. But I think that the more I talk about it, I am a former FBI agent. I am a former teacher. And if this can happen to me, I really feel like by talking about it, it gives people more strength to come forward and hold these people accountable.
Right now, Austin Aldama is out on bond. Stipulations of his release include living with a family member. He is allowed to use electronic devices, but they're subject to random searches. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Gillespie.